John.
Oh, Nick.
John.
We're both wearing funny hats here. What's going on?
It's like we've just come from band practice, but for very different bands.
Me, I'm just finding things in the land of the lost here. In this my shed should be mislaid because I get to find my hat, the glasses that I've been looking for. This is great.
I have just rediscovered that this is my old boating cap for boating on the Norfolk Broads. So I haven't seen this in quite a few years.
Now, short men shouldn't wear hats because it just makes them look shorter. But my son gave me this, for free. So what the heck? It's as a place of honor inside my. Throw on a shelf over here. There you go. Believe me, I looked all through that hat to make sure it didn't have daddy long legs. I didn't want that moment when it comes down the side of my face and my beard, everybody globally that watches these things saying, oh, just skip to, minute 3 in the second Christmas Pig video. You see John freak out as a spider crawls over him. Anyway, so we do these things in every episode. I'm sorry the people that are watching these things in sequence and they watch us. We say the same thing, but what are we doing here, Nick? Yeah,
well, John.
In case someone just says, "Oh, Christmas Pig, I wanted a Christmas Pig." What's this one about?
So to celebrate J.K. Rowling's 60th birthday, which is a big deal in Japanese culture, it's called a Kanreki. She's basically gone through the entire Far Eastern calendar of 12 astrological symbols and 5 elements. So after 60 years, she's got round the calendar at the point at which she comes in. So this is her symbolic rebirth. To celebrate that, we are doing a lake and shed reading of every book she has written. And a little bit like Warner Brothers, when they got up to Deathly Hallows, we're now doubling up. We're doing part 1 and part 2. This is part 2 of the Ichabod. And when we talk about lake and shed...
This is part 2 of Christmas Pig. Don't scare people there. Don't scare people. Like,
we're not going backwards. We're not going backwards. This is part 2 of the Christmas Pig. And when we talk about lake and shed readings, we're talking about Rowling's metaphor for her creative process. So the lake is where she envisages the ideas coming from her subconscious. This is her biography and her bibliography. That's all the books she's written, and her life, her unresolved issues bubbling from her subconscious. And this idea, in whatever form it's taken, she takes to her shed over with John in Oklahoma City, where she applies her...
No, she does not come to Oklahoma City to write.
Yet. We don't know that, John. We don't know. We know she has access to a private jet.
I should look for her on July 31st in her Kanreki outfit. Yeah, the red hat and the anyway. The red baby bonnet, I should say. All right.
And what does she do in the shed, John?
In the shed, she takes this molten glass type inspiration and she changes it from her individual issues into archetypal story that will touch the heart of any human being that still has a heart. And this is no small thing. It really marks her as why she's the most popular writer for the age, and I think why she's the most meaningful writer of the age is the work she does in the shed. And all my work has been about this, about the shed work. Only at Rowling's insistence have we taken a dive in the lake. And we do that, as you said in the previous installment here on Christmas Pig, we do that with some hesitation. We know that Rowling remarried, and her child from her first marriage had a new relationship to deal with, and had changed in her relationship with her mother because her mother's whole world was changing. And then, of course, new children come on the scene. There must have been some sibling rivalry there. Only if those kids are human. We don't know if they're human. Maybe they're all angels. But that transparency, you can just draw the lines there. We know this comes from Rowling's life, is fades into almost something like meaninglessness compared to what she does in the shed. That the people that talk about the biographical, what's it called? Well, C.S. Lewis calls it the personal heresy. The biographical illusion that you can take, you have to look at the book to figure out what's actually happening in the life, and you have to look at the life to see what was happening in the book. There are limits to that, and real boundaries that we try to observe.
Yes.
I think, Nick, that that people probably aren't even watching the second half of it. All they do is they tune in to hear you talk about the lake. And then I start talking, they're like, swipe right. But that's why we do this, is to say, Rowling's artistry, she understands that she's a human being, flesh and blood, and she has her issues, and that's where this stuff comes from. She has a history. She has a library inside her head, and to get what goes on in the shed, really, you do have to understand the germ of the idea, the inspiration, to appreciate the artistry that she layers over it. So that's what we're about here. But really what we're about here is celebrating the life and the work of J.K. Rowling. And there's not much left. Not much left here, Nick. We're
not to J.K. Rowling's life. There's much left. Long and happy life. We're all sure. But yeah,
it's in terms of the published work, what we have left is Ink Black Heart.
Yes.
Fantastic Beasts 3. That may be our first 15-minute episode. and then Running Grave, which, as Nick's favorite strike novel, we may go to two things. But we have a couple of things we want to add in here that we've already planned tentatively. But when we run out of books, we just as soon take a poll of our listeners, and you can tell us what you want us to be doing. You better act fast, though, because you only got 4 or 5 episodes. All right, back to Christmas Pig, Nick.
Okay.
Yesterday, you introduced us to the Blue Bunny, the real world Blue Bunny, with Mackenzie Jean and J.K. Rowling doing cameos. That was a wow. But really, you got the Blue Bunny doing a Dobby and living, just as Dobby, we hope, went to heaven, so did the Blue Bunny. Tell us about the real world Christmas pig or Der Pig and replacement pig.
Okay, so mentioned briefly last time that the first hint we had that a pig was coming was this Twitter header of this stuffed toy, this beanie bag kind of toy. Now, for obsessive Rowling followers like me, of course, the first thing you do when you see a change of a Twitter header and there's a toy pig is you search for every tweet J.K. Rowling has ever sent with the word pig in it. Of course, I'm pretty sure we all did that. So I found out about the toy pig probably before anyone else. And so this was 2020, 4 years before. A friend of hers who writes romantic fiction and children's stories about a puffin called Neil sent out a Twitter alert. Neil, the toy puffin, was lost in Edinburgh Airport. And the appeal was, has anyone seen Neil? It's a beloved toy, so not any puffin would do. There's lots of people wrote back asking, I know where they stock these. You can pick up another one, but you can't do that. J.K. Rowling replied, we've got a manky, priceless one too, but he's a pig, not a puffin. Really hope you find him. Hashtag Neil Solidarity. Um, to people who were worried, Neil was found safe and well. um, that was the first we hear of the real Christmas pig. The pig that was displayed as the Twitter header was not a new but a fairly good condition pig. As part of the publicity for the Christmas pig, we got a photograph from J.K. Rowling of the blind pig, and the blind pig wasn't even pink anymore. So he was this grey thing with his head all bandaged up because he was going in for eye surgery to have buttons replace what were his eyes. So I think we have photographic evidence of both DP, which is the blind pig, and CP, which was the Twitter header. So J.K. Rowling wrote on her website as an explanation for the inspiration for the story. The story was inspired by my dread of David losing his beloved pig for good. So David had a habit of hiding his pig in drawers and underneath things for safekeeping. So it was always a bit of a scramble before bedtime to reunite boy and pig together so that they could go to bed. And gradually I became interested in what it would mean to be a replacement toy, knowing that you couldn't ever be quite what the original was, with all its many associations and memories. Slowly, the land of the lost started to take shape. So J.K. Rowling actually bought a replacement pig, a backup pig, because she was certain that David eventually was going to completely lose his pig. David actually discovered the replacement pig and then convinced himself that they were brothers. So he now has two pigs. We don't know their real names. They've been protected to protect the innocent. But he has at least pig and replacement pig. And that's the inspiration. That's the idea behind the story, except it isn't, is it? Because David never lost the pig. So
I want to say, Nick, that this is going to be a euphemism that comes into popular currency is going to be to have lost one's pig.
Yeah.
You know, that touchstone,
yes.
which makes you feel strong and secure and this and that. Like, yes, and then he lost his pig.
Well, as we all know, John, to lose one pig might be considered unfortunate. To lose two seems like carelessness. So, where did J.K. Rowling get the idea for the loss of the toy? So this is the toy being thrown out of a moving car and lost forever. And I think, and I wrote it up on Hogwarts Professor, but I have at least convinced myself I know where J.K. Rowling got that story idea from. So American viewers will be familiar with the name Mr. Rogers as a children's TV presenter. You may not be aware that the rest of the world has never heard of him and is a cultural reference completely lost on us.
Such a shame.
I know. Well,
shame.
I know, and I found this out. I'm just checking the date of publication because I wrote it shortly after I saw the film. There was a biopic that was written. Right? That was written off the back of a fairly famous article, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And I watched that film and it is incredibly moving. And you know, what a character that Mr. Rogers was, profoundly, devotedly Christian and just a joy to be around children. And I enjoyed that the film so much, which is unusual for me because I'm not a film watcher, and it takes a remarkable film for me to maintain concentration through it. Um, I, I enjoyed it so much. I actually found the original article, which was the inspiration for the film, in Esquire magazine, released in 2007. I'm going to read this passage and see if it convinces you as much as it convinced me. So this is the guy who's narrating is the journalist who actually wrote the article. Once upon a time, a little boy loved a stuffed animal whose name was Old Rabbit. It was so old, in fact, that it was really an unstuffed animal. So old that even back then, with the little boy's brain still nice and fresh, he had no memory of it as young rabbit, or even rabbit. So old that old rabbit was barely a rabbit at all, but rather a greasy hunk of skin without eyes and ears, with a single red stitch where its tongue used to be. The little boy didn't know why he loved old rabbit, he just did. And the night he threw it out of the car window was the night he learned how to pray. He would grow up to be a great prayer, this little boy, but only intermittently, only fitfully, praying only when fear and desperation drove him to it. And the night he threw old Rabbit into the darkness was the night that set the pattern, the night that taught him how. He prayed for old Rabbit's safe return, and when, hours later, his mother and father came home with the filthy, precious strip of rabbity roadkill, he learned not only that prayers are sometimes answered, but also the kind of severe effort they entail, the kind of endless, frantic summoning. And so when he threw old Rabbit out of the car window the next time, it was gone for good. Isn't that powerful?
He threw it out the window again.
I know.
Mr. Roberts.
So this all came out of Mr. Rogers actually talking to this cynical this cynical journalist who had seen it all, and managed to capture his imagination, ripped this memory out of him, and written beautifully. But that part, that toy being thrown out of the car window, that beloved animal, that's just so close. I cannot believe that isn't where Rowling got that idea from. I think we've got the genesis of the story is the ownership of the pig and the purchase of the replacement pig and thinking about what replacement means. I think the dramatic story of Old Rabbit's defenestration is the kind of thing that would stick in the mind. And I think that came after the I want to write about a lost toy. That's the dramatic moment that the toy is lost. What we may never know is Rowling went a step further. So this wasn't, and it couldn't have been, I don't think, Jack in a fit of pique or having a tantrum and throwing his own pig out of the car window. This had to be another person-to-person conflict. Did that come from a childhood squabble of her own kids? Did that come from a childhood squabble between her and her sister? But both, I think, are possibilities. And unless she writes about it, we will never know.
And it doesn't. I don't think it really matters. I mean, the germ of the story, for her Lake and Shed formula, comes from her experience. I think as a mother of a child, bringing a husband into the equation, having more children with the second father, and just the conflicts and the adjustments of all these changed relationships. I mean, my wife and I had 6 children, adopted one, and every time we had another child, everything changed inside the house. and the children all had to make, an adjustment. The youngest one always being happiest about the new baby, I'm no longer the baby of the family. But that's clearly the germ of the story. Then you've identified I think a strong possibility for how many toys are thrown out of windows of cars. That's a pretty strong link. But still, again, it's sort of like the casual vacancy. The story is so autobiographical, and she says that she had the idea for it on a plane coming to the open book tour. I'm like, no way, no way. Did you plan the entire Strike series? Work on Cursed Child, and then begin the Fantastic Beasts series while you were writing Casual Vacancy? No, that book I think had to have largely been written, and the Casual Vacancy, as you've put forward, is the inspiration that she had is how to frame the story. Great. This story too, you have the story germ, the molten stuff she pulls out of her lake from her family experiences, childhood, marriage, whatever, or like the Velveteen Rabbit. Beatrice Grove's done some wonderful work on this story and how it's from that. Certainly her remarkable understanding of Dante and children and child psychology. Psychology, I'll talk about that a little bit. It's her thing about exteriorizing in story the interior state. That's her wow power. That's her superpower, is to take these random things. My wife said to me the other day, she says, I lose things all the time. I could never have written The Christmas Pig. No, I don't think anybody on the planet could have written Christmas Pig except for J.K. Rowling. It's just, if this book came out with a different name on it, Nick Jeffrey wrote The Christmas Pig. They would run this through an artificial intelligence machine. They would say, "Oh no, he didn't. No, he didn't. This is a screaming, obvious and profound work that could only have been written by Rowling." Are we segueing into The Shed?
I think we are.
Oh, okay. I've already started talking about it. I mean, The Christmas Pig is, to me, the most powerful part of the story. It's the story of a soul's transformation. Certainly, we see it in his relationship with Holly and the whole Christmas aspect of that, and meeting her in the wastes of despond. What does she call the wastes of despond? She has the
So in Bunyan, it's the slough of despond.
Slough of despond, and what is it? The waste of despair or something? Yeah. Well, anyway, she meets Bully Boss and finds out in the dead center of the story, Holly's grief that she's jealous of her younger brother. Magnificent story of transformation. Love it. But we get a scene in the City of the Mist, which I think probably a lot of readers go through very quickly. It's very involved. And that is the debate about whether Jack and CP will be fed to the loser or whether they'll be set free to do what they want to do. Find DP. And that scene is the real Psychomachian scene, where we get exteriorization of man's interior life in an allegorical form. And it's Bunyan-esque, certainly, in that the characters are named. Hope, happiness, memory, ambition. Yeah, this is not a scratch your head moment. Wonder who that could represent. I mean, she's making them all wear cardboard signs, but that is an example of her exteriorization. Now, Beatrice Groves has written about this, and there are two other authors that have written about this, and but it's something that when someone points this out to you, you say, well, of course, That's what Rowling does. If you're familiar with her Harry Potter stories, we get this in the pensieve, certainly. You get literally this memory dragged out of somebody's head, and you get to enter into it. You exteriorize a memory, and you get to walk around inside of it. The Bogart and its effect on people, where their fears come out and take a shape. That's a big deal. And then there's the Patronus, which is really kind of like the heart's essence is projected out into the world, and everybody gets to experience it. And Rowling, that's what Rowling is doing in the story, certainly with her soul triptych in that story, and the male and female aspects, soul and spirit, in Hormone Strike. In this book, the exteriorization is a little more obscure. But here's the thing: is that Evan Willis drilled it. Rowling is highlighting psychological interior elements, which is to say her character's fears, desires, repressed emotions, for her readers to look for in character behavior and language, in addition to what can be seen in her exteriorizing devices that we've talked about, the pensieve and the Bogart and the Patronus stuff. In Christmas Pig, as Evan Willis first discussed, Rowling is, by her own admission, using the toy pig as a symbol in light of the significance of childhood stuffed animals as transitional objects. And this is from an interview she did. She said, psychologists call these treasured toys transitional objects, which can soothe children and act as a comforting stand-in for a parent when needed. That's quite a clinical way of looking at it, though. I see these toys as invested with a certain kind of magic. They may come to us formed, but we remake them in our own image, investing them with characteristics of our own and idealized personalities. In effect, that they're exteriorizations of our interior life. Now, if you want to talk about the 4 levels of meaning in Christmas Pig, and I do, the chief anagogical meaning, you start off with Jack's toy pigs, both DP and CP in the end, as the exteriorizations of his spiritual heart. Okay, this logos light within everyone, which in Rowling's creative work are almost without exception physical representations of the God who is love via story symbols of a mother's unconditional and sacrificial love. Jack Jones has exteriorized his mother's love into his psycho-spiritual symbiote or transitional object, Pig or DP. Note that he, when very young, fell asleep every night sucking Pig's ear. DP is a pacifier in the sense that he takes the place and comes to represent his mother's nourishing nipple, the source of his union with and nourishment from his loving point of origin. I mean, Rowling says it's about parents. It's about mom. Okay. When DP disappears, Jack only wants his mother to return and becomes unhinged in being separated not only from mom, but from his totem for her love. She, of course, is the person who finds him beneath the tree in the only chapter, Home, of Part 7. And it is her scent, the trace of Mom's perfume on DP and CP, that is our talisman of what the toys represent throughout the book. I'm gonna beat this to death, Nick. Okay. Again, I talked about this yesterday. When Jack and Pig are trapped by the Crusher in Bother It's Gone, it is thoughts of his mother's love and his connection to this love with his toy pig that saves him. Okay. The J.K. Rowling who has written Christmas Pig, I offer for your consideration, all of you out here listening to this, has only expanded the category of logos love reservoirs to include children's beloved toys, these transitional objects. When Rowling says, I see them as invested with a certain kind of magic, this is a magic whose power is beyond the reach of any magic, as Dumbledore said, a force greater than death, than human intelligence, than the forces of nature. The love which they are invested, as Rowling put it, enlivens them. CP is enlivened by Holly's remorse, and who as a replacement DP explains, once enlivened, we understand all about their owner from the very start. He's always loved you as much as I do, which as a traditional object means the love between child and mother that is a selfless identification to the point of ego elision. Hence, Pig concludes, the replacement's decision to sacrifice himself because Jack's happiness was more important to CP than his own. Okay, so again, this is the full blown up of this. This is in the quadriga reading of thing down below if you want to read the whole thing without me stumbling and bumbling. All the stuff that's in there, like literary alchemy and the ring composition, all those traditional tools, I think are perhaps better understood as further exteriorizations or symbolic representations of the soul and its journey to perfection. All right. Literary alchemy is a sequential process of purification and enlightenment, is what it is in English literature because the parallel with metallurgical alchemy's conversion of lead or hard darkness into gold or solid light is such a fitting and powerful representation of the soul's movement from repentance through purification to spiritual perfection or illumination as gold. Ring composition is very much the same thing, and returning to the center, the metaphysical cause or creator, the God who is light and love. I think, and I'm pretty good at this, right, Nick? I think the exteriorization of the soul's faculties in Christmas Pig has Jack's toys and himself as the heart, symbolic of a mother's love with which form Rowling has chosen to represent divine love or logos as its beginning point, as its point of origin. By the time we reach the City of the Mist and enter King Power's palace, this symbolism is well established, and what Rowling writes in the chapters about the vote taken among palace inhabitants, we get a much larger picture of soul than just its inner essence and noetic capacity, that logos heart. She provides here an allegory of Peter and John again, this time in the up or down vote to send Jack and CP to the loser. The palace becomes a stage for the drama played out in every conscious person between the inner life of love, hope, and blessedness and the path of pursuing exterior advantage and power. The players in this drama in King Power's palace are aspects of every person who is left to decide if they will serve King Power, a stand-in for ego and pride, or Jack Jones, the Christ within us. And CP the same way. On the side of power, we get the stick figures. They're not stick figures. They're really wonderful characters. Our ambition, beauty, and 3 of the 6 principles. The arguments that ambition and power advance to win these votes are the necessity of carrying out punishments according to the letter of the law, regardless of the injustice involved, a payout of some kind, which is personal advantage, and obscure at first, but really clarified in Power's rant and rage at the finish, is the threat of violence, right? Power and ambition do their best, in addition to lock out voters. They don't want to participate in this runoff election in the Capitol building, all right? Capitol is derived from the word for head, and I think it helps to think of the palace as the movie location for our soul aspects, debating whether Peter or John will triumph, whether the heart lives or dies in that assembled body. Now we get to the good guys. Memory, the mother of the 9 mythological muses and a necessity for coherent thinking, is represented as a good-hearted, if obviously senescent older woman. She votes for Jack and CP despite being bullied by ambition and being told by Green Beauty that she is a bore because she says they don't stop me from remembering. I like them. They is italicized because clearly ambition and power and beauty are trying to keep her from remembering. I like them. Memory has a clear connection with tradition, and only those with great recall or prodigious study of history appreciate the primacy of the heart in the human person. It's something which is never taught in schools, or, anywhere. Yes, it's our courts, our media, our this and that, other than stories like Harry Potter, the Christmas Pig, and Cormoran Strike. The primacy of the heart in the human person is something that we don't know except from within. 3 of the 6 principles are persuaded by CP's plea that turning Jack himself over to the loser would be murder, and that's the worst crime of all. principles who claim to be the things who make human beings behave with honesty and decency based on their inner prompting and resistance to external temptations. These principles clearly are not sure votes when it comes to choosing between the Petrine law and Johannine justice. Optimism votes for Jack and CP not to be turned over, though he too is browbeaten by King Power. Optimism gives the first impression. Really, optimism could have been labeled superficiality in the beginning. So he's a glad hander. It turns out he is only a mental posture that is sensitive first to what he calls the deep down, and Jack and CP are the deepest aspect of the soul. That is the heart. So optimism votes that they not only be saved, but also that the king change your mind and let them live in the palace with us. Gotta love optimism. He presents the possibility of ego and pride, ambition and power coexisting peacefully in the thinking of the same individual mind with the humble but all-powerful heart and conscience. That's certainly an optimistic idea, given the profundity of the contraries. This is like Harrow and Draco going out for a butterbeer. So hope and happiness. Moving on, hope and happiness were not told about the meeting or invited by power and ambition. The principals were told to stay in their rooms, but elected to come because it would have been against ourselves to stay away. Happiness, in contrast, was locked in her room and left unaware of the vote. Both she and Hope were locked out of the palace room in which the vote was to be held. Ambition has told Jack and CP that she was lost by her owner, a politician, after the small setback of not winning a trifling vote. Ambition has clearly counted the votes in this up or down thing in advance, and she's sure that hope and happiness will not be on the side of power. Why is ambition so sure of that? Hope clearly is an interior virtue, one somewhat akin to optimism, but is the strength and sustenance primarily to the underdog, the person, or in this case, the faculty of soul that has little to no exterior aspect or power. It is easy to imagine hope residing in the heart. This attribute certainly proves to be the saving virtue that Jack demonstrates, having acquired in the land of the lost during his confrontation with the loser in his lair. She is the bane of power and the friend of happiness and the heart. On to happiness. Happiness is warmth and light. So as mentioned, she's representative, as our Jack of the toys, of the logos, light of the world that is the inner light of every man. This is hard to see at first because we've been taught to think of happiness as getting all things that we want, especially advantage, pleasure, and power. So we're taught to think that if you're ambitious and powerful and get all these toys, not toys like Jack and CP, but you get all these exterior things, then you'll be happy. Rowling is careful to have happiness explained to the hideaways in her gondola when they first come into the City of the Mist, that she is more of a cross between empathy and healthy self-awareness. This is from the gondola scene. Jack's eyes are getting used to the extreme brightness of happiness. She's the light of the world. And he found that if he peeped at her sideways, he could just make out the form of a smiling woman in the middle of the dazzling light. How were you lost? He asked shyly. Through carelessness, sighed Happiness. My owner is an actress. She's charming and talented, but she wasn't as kind as she should have been to the people she cared about, nor as hardworking as she might have been, even though she loved her job. Her gifts once brought her friends and success, but through laziness and selfishness they slipped away, and now, sadly, she has lost me too. How will she get you back again? Asked the Christmas pig. It will be difficult, said Happiness, because she's looking for me in all the wrong places. And as she isn't used to admitting fault, I'm afraid I may be in the City of the Mist for a long time, perhaps forever. Now, do I name the name, Nick? Do I go really, in the back channels at Hogwarts Professor, the moderators' back channels, man, this was immediately identified as Emma Watson. Just as Rowling's taking a real pow at the superpowered feminist that knows better than Rowling about transgenderism and the rights of women. Okay, anyway, that whether that's true, again, just a guess,
If any,
based on.
if any lawyers are watching, that's mere speculation.
Do you think Watson has a has Barracuda barristers on call? Anyway, the actress in the story is not a reflective person, is unkind even to those she cared about, is negligent with respect to her vocation, that word within, which is to say her defining idea, is insensitive to the spiritual light and darkness of her environment, and worst, she isn't used to admitting fault. No remorse here, right? No self-awareness. These qualities expel happiness, and all of them are marks of the someone insensitive to the logos within his or herself, the capacity to love another person as oneself. To feel remorse or repentance after injuring or being insensitive to the neighbor who shares the same ontological ground is what makes remorse the thing that is able to make your soul go back together. Happiness, as ambition is recognized, is a sister of heart. More eudaimonia, to use Aristotelian language, or blessedness, as that's also scriptural, the good composed of all goods, an ability which suffices for living well, perfection in respect of virtue, resources sufficient for a living creature. Those are the definition of Greek happiness, eudaimonia. This is so different than self-focused cheer on account of faring well and having great physical or emotional pleasures. Okay, so as ambition must have anticipated, hence her attempts to have the meeting in her mind without heart, without hope or happiness, the do or don't turn them over will not win the majority of the qualities of mind. King Power, however, our ego exteriorization as a character, is a true servant of the loser who feels free to break the rules of his own kingdom. He seeks the palace lost adjusters on Jack and CP, who escaped them by the blinding light happiness gives off, and by hope's rapid and powerful intervention to save them. If Compass were telling this story, I want to have the poem and Compass version of the story. If Compass were telling this story, she would provide a moral or a motto here. My retelling, lists a simple explanation of Rowling's allegorical decision-making process in the City of the Mist Palace depiction of the soul. Right. The question in play is whether power or the heart, Peter or John, will be the guiding concern of every man, whether his focus will be the inner up there or just on worldly exterior concerns in the visible plane. The vote is very close because, especially today, trusting the heart to discern what is best for the person in the long and short term, rather than faculties adept to calculating privilege, depends entirely on the presence of hope and happiness, the virtues that power ego will do everything to prevent them to have a voice in the decision. In the rare case that the heart wins, fair and square, power, the demands and concerns of exterior life, the desire for approval and confirmation from without, but not above or from within, will do everything to divide the heart servant from the truth to be found on the island of the blessed. Power is not going to accept the verdict. If power decrees his rule overrules the law within the mind, the heart is fed to the loser and the heart within dies. The death of the living boy or heart, akin to the murder of the boy who lived, is the spiritual death of the person and his surrender to the ephemeral understanding to be had on the horizontal plane, divorced from the greater reality up there. The light of happiness and the wings of hope deliver the heart from the dualistic or disintegrating forces serving ego and pride, the powers of corruption and alliance against the heart. They take them off to a paradise well removed from the palace of the soul and its capacities. Heart learns the truth necessary to defeat the loser Satan, a shade of life without the inner life of love logos, and returns to the greater reality up there in which the heart can experience and accept the love of the father, which is here the mother, and of his brother, who is his stepsister. This is the medieval morality play, Nick. This is very much like the Chamber of Secrets confrontation between Harry the Heart saving his best friend's sister from the memory of an ego that never knew his mother's love. Not to mention the ties to memory, ambition, and beauty. Is is your mental picture of beauty, Nick, Gilderoy Lockhart? I mean, other than being green, I really was having a Gilderoy moment there. Okay. Really, when you write about Rowling's shed artistry, you're really writing about Rowling as a sacred artist depicting the soul's journey to perfection in the spirit. And these allegorical dramas that she puts inside these stories, like the power, the vote in Power's Palace, that's solid gold, Nick. This is the dream. Really, there's so much more to say. I wish I mentioned poem and pretense and compass, but if you walk away from this discussion of Christmas Pig saying, Rowling is writing non-liturgical sacred art about the soul's journey to perfection, and your heart, which is really also known as your imagination, enters into this story and experience some shadow of that, and the joy that you feel is the soul's joy in saying, this is what we're about in a world that doesn't want to talk about that. That's again, Rowling's superpower is her using these traditional tools and using them in her shed to work on the stuff that comes out of her as a person who's an historical accident with her crises and that are the germ of the idea. And then she pulls from them this powerful story and reminder of what it means to be human. You're a storytelling animal. She's telling you stories about stories and how to read, and stories about thereby what all stories are really about finally, which is the soul's perfection and spirit.
She does it in such a compact form.
In this book especially, this book is like a crystal.
Yeah. Just incredible.
This book is such a how many pages is it? It's got 9 parts, but compare it to Troubled Blood, which came out almost simultaneously. Troubled Blood is the extended play version of Christmas Pig, and all of this. It's better, I think, in Christmas Pig, just because of the Spencerian elements. Though Elizabeth Baird Hardy, in addition to the Dante that Evan noted and the Velveteen Rabbit, and Evan also talked about Goethe's Faust in here, about the exchange here in the end. But really, anyway, Elizabeth Baird Hardy said there's Spencer in here too, and she laid out all these allegorical elements. This is such a powerful thing, and people are talking about Bunyan and his allegory and stuff like that. I think Elizabeth is probably more. I think, especially as it occurs inside the this sandwich here of Troubled Blood and that essay that she wrote about courage and why she was so involved with this issue. That was her offering hope and happiness to a world that had literally lost its mind, that was consumed by power. And she instead was just saying, no, here's what it is, speaking from her heart. Hence, this is Christmassy, but we got kind of a heart thing going there. Anyway, I'm waiting for the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer cartoon for this thing, at which time I think people will go back to this, and the Christmas Pig will find its way onto curricula, surveys of literature, introductions to 21st century women's literature in the UK. This is going to be the book I think people read to get J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
If they will or not, who knows? Because in a way, there's no way we could have gotten what Christmas Pig is about, except for all the other books.
Yeah.
All the exteriorization and the allegory and the literary alchemy. I like to think it would have been a great success if this was her first book, but I doubt it. There's so many echoes of things.
I think if she was a brand new author, it should have received great success, I think she'd have needed a different title.
You still don't like the Christmas pig. Oh, to me, that's such a hat tip to the Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
That I mean, Dickens, I think, is the most powerful thing. He wrote 21 Christmas stories, of which people maybe know two. But really, Christmas Carol is the equivalent of what Christmas Pig, I think, will be. You know,
Yeah.
there are wonderful collections of all Dickens's Christmas stories, and they're worth the read. Let me tell you. But other than Christmas Carol, you don't get all of Dickens involved in there. So anyway, we've covered my two favorite books, Nick. And I've written a book about Deathly Hallows. We didn't do two episodes on Deathly Hallows, which how did we do that?
I just remember how excited we were when Christmas Pig came out and all the stuff we were doing on the back channels. Patricio found the trademark for Christmas Pig, which helped us put together how far she says she started writing this in 2012, and we know it had a long gestation. The trademarks gave me the idea to see if we could find if there was anything else coming up. What are we looking at next, John?
Ink Black Heart?
The Ink Black Heart.
Or is it Fantastic Beasts?
I think it's Ink Black Heart. I want it to be Ink Black Heart, if I'm honest.
Going out to the shed here. I have.
You sent me a schedule.
I have Ichabod, Trouble Blood, Christmas Pig, and then Fantastic Beasts 3, which is April of 2022, and then Ink Black Heart, which is August of 2022. So
we got to power through it, John.
Next episode, Nick,
we've got to power through it.
We're going to talk about the lake in the shed of a work that has Rowling's name on the cover.
It was inspired. It was inspired by a script by J.K. Rowling.
They should have put that on all of those covers. And again, Rowling does not count those books among her list of work.
No.
Cursed Child and the collaborative exercises, she does not put on her things that she wants people to say, this is by J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
And Nick, I'm going to leave here, and I'm going to watch Fantastic Beasts 3.
Okay.
The Secrets of Dumbledore.
I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave here because I don't think I can watch it again.
That's right. Movies aren't your thing.
No.
That's right.
And I don't even think I've got the script, but I'm going to take one for the team. I'm going to purchase the script and read it before tomorrow.
God bless you. Bless you. I think I've read it, but I'm going to just watch that. So all you beasts bullies out there. Yes, we're disdainful and dismissive of what Hollywood does to Rowling shooting scripts.
But don't let us put you off.
That's right.
Come on, watch us tomorrow.
That's right. Show us, leave in the comments how wrong we are. I love a good, because I know that I'm missing a lot, especially those scenes where they slip between dimensions. I think that may be the most important and most meaningful thing about Rowling's beneath, behind, and within stuff. So I'll probably talk about that tomorrow in the shed artistry, Nick.
I look forward to it. See you tomorrow, John.
Here.